Hey everybody, Sean from Movie Assault here, and it is time for episode 7 of the Halloween 15 for 2020. This time out, we'll be taking a look at Night of the Living Dead from 1968 and Hatchet from 2006. And first up, we'll take a look at Night of the Living Dead. This is the Criterion Collection version that was released, I believe, in 2018. Excellent version of the film. There are many crappy versions of this film available out in the wild on DVD, and I don't know if there are any really crappy versions on Blu-ray, but this is absolutely the way to see it, is on Blu-ray on the Criterion Collection version. It's a pristine copy of the film that was recently restored. The film fell into the public domain for a while, and as a result, anybody who was able to press a few DVDs was able to make copies of it, and it looked like it. Night of the Living Dead is an absolute classic. I will just start off and say that first and foremost, and it is a film that I'm including in the Halloween 15, even though I've seen it before, and like I've said in prior videos, that the Halloween 15 is usually made up of films that I've never seen before, that I'm reviewing for the first time, or viewing for the first time and then reviewing. But Night of the Living Dead is a film that I included for two reasons. One is that it is a film that I believe that if you're a horror film, you really need to see. And if you're one of those people that don't want to watch an old horror film that's in black and white, for some reason you have an aversion to it, just ignore those issues that you have and see the film, because this is where the zombie subgenre of horror movies came from. The modern version of horror, of zombies rather. I Walked with a Zombie earlier in the Halloween 15 this year, and that was the classic, the original version of what a zombie is, the sort of voodoo-based version. And from this film, from 1968 forward, zombies in films tended to look more like the ones in Night of the Living Dead. The other reason I wanted to review it is because the first few times that I watched this film, I really wasn't looking at it through a critical eye. I was watching it just for the fact that it was a horror film, and I just wanted to entertain myself. And it's not that when I review a film, I'm not being entertained by the films I watch. It's just that I wasn't really looking at it with a critical eye in terms of where this film has influenced other films and things that have come from this film that have been reflected in other films. So I kind of wanted to kind of refresh my memory in terms of what this film brought to the table, because it is the seed from which so many other films have been sprouted from. The plot is pretty simple, and for such an influential movie, this movie has a fairly limited scope. The plot centers around a group of people stuck in a farmhouse in rural Pennsylvania, and how they deal with the onslaught of what appear to be normal people who are just really tenacious and want to eat them, and they're not sure what the hell is happening. And so I really won't even spoil the plot beyond that. A lot of the things that you'll see in this film, you've probably seen in other films dealing with zombies, including, the initial encounters with people in these zombies, and the people are confused as to what's going on, all that kind of stuff. But the thing I like here is, because this is the first time it's really ever happened on film, you don't learn anything ahead of time. You find out what's going on as the characters in the film find it out, whether that be from word of mouth or from radio broadcasts that they hear or TV broadcasts that they watch. Slowly, the details of what's happening are doled out to the viewer, and I think that's really key in keeping you engrossed. Like, what the hell is happening? Why are these people doing this? Why are these ghouls, the film never refers to them as zombies, why are they attacking people? Why are they eating their flesh and their innards? And why are they just so driven? What is going on, and what is being done to stop it? So I think that's really cool. Director George A. Romero and his co-writer John Russo, they did an excellent job of using their limited budget in such a way that it creates this claustrophobic atmosphere that works to the film's favor. The fact that it was shot in black and white in a time where black and white films weren't really being made too much anymore reflects its budget, but it also gives the film sort of this gritty, dirty atmosphere. And it sort of comes off as in sort of a newsreel documentary type feel with the handheld cameras and whatnot. It's very immediate feeling, and that just all adds to the atmosphere. The special effects, even though this movie is 52 years old as of the time I'm watching this, it's as old as I am. I think the special effects, for the most part, have aged fairly well. There's one shot of a hand that, if you've seen the film, you know which one I'm talking about. That one looks pretty bad, but otherwise, everything stands up pretty well. And again, the black and white photography kind of masks any limitations that may have been there, and really, for the most part, the special effects hold up well. I don't know. I think that Night of the Living Dead was the first of its kind, and it still remains one of the best of its kind. And I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 stars. Absolutely a classic, and you need to see it if you consider yourself a horror fan. So next up is Hatchet from 2006, and we go from an absolute classic film to one that I really couldn't get into or get excited about. Hatchet was released in 2006, and it was marketed as the return of the old school slasher. Slashers had fallen out of favor for a little while. They had a brief resurgence after Scream was released in the 90s, but they were done with sort of a self-aware, sort of almost comical edge to them. So what the makers of Hatchet wanted to do was bring back a typical slasher film with a character, in this case Victor Crowley, sort of an iconic type slasher in the mold of like a Freddy Krueger or a Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers or something like that. And I admire their attempt to do it. The film does have some self-aware aspects to it, but it kind of tries to pass it off as parody, but it doesn't quite work. This is a film that tells the tale of Ben, who is played by Joel David Moore, who, when you see him, you will probably recognize him immediately from quite a bit of things that he's done. He and his college buddies take a trip to New Orleans to celebrate Mardi Gras, but he's not really feeling it because he recently broke up with his girlfriend. So he convinces his buddy Marcus to go on this swamp ghost tour with him. And once they get out on the boat, they meet a collection of wildly diverse collection of people, including 2 softcore porn actresses, their director, an older couple, and this woman named Mary Beth, who is sort of sitting by herself and seems sort of self-absorbed. And it turns out she's looking for her brother and father who have disappeared in the swamp. Now, as viewers, we know what happens to her brother and father because at the beginning of the film, we see what happens to them. But she is looking for them. And so the tour guide is inexperienced, and he ends up getting their tour boat. It bottoms out on a rock, and they get stuck in the swamp near the house of Victor Crowley. And local legends say that Victor Crowley haunts the swamp. He's a ghost because he was a disfigured little kid, and he was accidentally killed by his father due to an accident. And he was also mistreated when he was a boy by all the local kids. So he's taking out his anger on everyone and kills anybody who gets too near his house. So it's very predictable. Of course, Victor Crowley hunts down all of these members of this ghost tour. It's nothing original. And it's not supposed to be original. It's supposed to be an old school sort of tip of the hat to the 80s slasher films, but it doesn't really bring anything new to the table. It does have a lot of very juvenile humor in it. I think I chuckled once or twice. It's sort of funny, but it's not really a parody or um, even a satire of slasher films. It does the same cliched things that old slashers do, but it doesn't really make any commentary on them. One of the things that I picked up on, and this is, I don't even know that this is a great example, but it's just the one that popped into my head at first, is that there's a scene where the tour guide, who is an Asian man, and Marcus, who is a black man, are carrying the old white guy who's been wounded, and they make a comment about why are they the ones that are responsible for his white ass or something to that effect. And this is something, you know, that reflects on something that happened in old school slashers where, you know, minorities were typically the first to die, that type of thing. But it doesn't do anything with it. It just references it, and that's it. There's no other commentary made. Okay, that thing existed in old slashers. Here it is in a new slasher. Who cares? It's just not saying anything that really has any merit. So if you like slasher movies, you'll like this film because it's the same old stuff, but it really doesn't bring anything new to the table. It's mercifully short. It's only an hour and 20 minutes or so. The characters all make dopey decisions. If you've seen that Geico commercial where the people don't want to run to the running car, they prefer to either run to the attic of the old house or hide behind all the chainsaws. That's the type of decision making that takes place in this film. And again, you know, people who want to defend this film will say, well, it's supposed to be that way. It's funny because they do the dumb things that everybody else did. Well, why do I need to see that again? So I really didn't like Hatchet. I do have to say that the gore and the kills will definitely make a lot of horror fans happy. If you like slasher films, the kills are entertaining. And there are a few cameos from horror stars like Robert Englund and Tony Todd that will also make you happy. But other than that, this is fairly, I would consider it a misfire. It's a missed opportunity to make an interesting horror comedy. There have been several others that have been much more successful at poking fun at the genre. This one is just, it comes off as just a bad attempt at aping a slasher film and calling it funny instead of it actually doing anything interesting or being truly funny. So I'm going to give Hatchet a 2 out of 5 stars. So there you go. That's my review of Night of the Living Dead and Hatchet. And we've got one more video coming in the Halloween 15 series, and that will be for the movie Overlord from 2018. And that is pretty much it. So thanks again for watching, everybody. As always, feel free to rate the video by clicking the thumbs up and subscribing if you haven't done so already. And take it easy. Thanks for watching.